Hello, I'm Jyotika. Welcome to Excelling Psychology. This is part 2 of solving October November 2024 paper 2 variant 2. In the first part we have looked at course study questions. Now we are going to look at unseen scenario type of questions and the 6 marker. So let's begin with part 2. For the scenario type of questions, make sure to take good time to read the scenario very carefully, and only after having understood the scenario fully start answering the questions. If you answer after understanding the scenario only halfway, then you end up making a lot of mistakes which you have to keep on cancelling and correcting, and that wastes a lot of time. So first we'll read slowly what is said in the scenario. Daniel used a sample of 20 participants in a laboratory experiment using a repeated measures design. He had two conditions: listening to loud music, listening to quiet music. Outline what is meant by repeated measures design, including an example from Daniel's study. Okay, first, before beginning, at least when you're practicing, if not during the main paper, make a habit of just checking in your mind, have you understood what is happening? Are you able to visualize it or speak it out in your own words? So there is this researcher called Daniel. He's doing a lab experiment. In that, he's making the same 20 participants undergo two conditions: loud music and quiet music. If you've understood this in your words, then we come to the question. The first question is we have to outline what's a repeated measures design and give an example from, of course, the scenario given. It's for 2 marks, so it's very straightforward. 1 mark we are going to get to outline in general what is repeated measures design, and 1 mark to give the example from Daniel's scenario. In the previous part, I had explained that whenever they ask a concept, give the definition for 1 mark. So repeated measures design, you must have learned some definition in the research methods chapter. Just give that for 1 mark. And example from Daniel's study means using wording from Daniel's scenario, explain what is repeated measures design. Let's see a model answer to understand this better. A repeated measures design means that same participants take part in all conditions of the experiment. Other ways of writing would be that same participants undergo each condition, or same participants repeatedly perform different tasks in the study. Key word is to mention same participants. Make sure that is coming in your definition. Now for Daniel's study, each person, or you can say each of the 20 participants, would have to listen to both loud music and quiet music. This is key. You have to mention the words loud music and quiet music to get full 2 marks. The most common mistake is to say in Daniel's study, participants would have to undergo all conditions. That does not show your understanding. That does not show that you've been able to identify which are the conditions in Daniel's study. So make sure that you're specifying loud music, quiet music are those conditions which the same participants will have to undergo. So if you write like this, you get full 2 marks. Next question is, in these unseen type of scenario questions, we have to keep the context in mind always. So what is meant by counterbalancing? Give an example from Daniel's study. Very similar to the previous, 1 mark for defining counterbalancing, 1 mark to give example from Daniel's study, meaning using wording from his study, linking specifically to the scenario given there. For that, we will get 1 more mark. So in general, what have you learnt about counterbalancing? Something like participants have to do both conditions in different orders, or it's something you could say like all participants have to do the first condition as well as the second condition, but in reverse order. Whatever definition you've learned, just give that first. Now linking to Daniel's situation, we have to show that we know the conditions, and we have to be able to give example of different orders. So let's see how to write. For example, half of Daniel participants could hear the loud music first and the other half could hear the quiet music first. Right? So I have used wording like loud music, quiet music from the given situation. I've used wording meaning I've shown that I understand in this situation which are the conditions exactly. And I have given the example also how counterbalancing will be done. Half of them are doing this first and the other half are doing this first. So that is how the orders are different. Because one is doing first loud music, but the other is doing the opposite or the reverse. First they are doing quiet music. So this is how you need to explain. In all these questions, the research methods type, just make sure you're using wording from the scenario while answering, and make sure whatever you're giving in the definition, like in definition I've mentioned conditions, orders, these things are being explained when you're linking it to the scenario. So in this scenario, what are the conditions? In this scenario, what are going to be the orders if we counterbalance? So whatever you give in the definition should be aligned with the example that you're giving next. It should not be definition is something else and the example is unconnected. Not that way. Let's look at the next. Explain one strength of repeated measures design other than the use of counterbalancing. Some students read in a lot of haste, so though it is given other than use of counterbalancing, they'll read very fast and they'll give from counterbalancing only. So it becomes totally wrong. So make sure that you're reading very carefully. Strength of repeated measures design, first just name it for 1 mark. So just specify, this is the strength. Supposing you're saying control over participant variables. So just name that. One strength is control over participant variables. Or you're saying some sort of order effects can reduce fatigue or practice. So one strength is order effects can reduce. Only thing is, if you're giving order effects, then again it should not be linked to counterbalancing. If you have some different point to make, then only give them. So I would suggest here avoid order effects, take the other strength, which is the of repeated measures design, which is control over participant variables, the key thing. One more strength is the alternatively, not a very good one, but you can take it. Sample size can be kept small if there's repeated measures. So here there were just 20 participants and he's able to do 2 conditions with that. Even that will count. So 1 mark for naming what is the strength and 1 more mark for explaining with reference to Daniel's scenario. So linking. See here in this question, they haven't asked us to link as such. So even if we don't link, we'll get marks because in the question, they're not saying give example from Daniel's situation. But why not give it? Because the context is given, why not make use of the context? It becomes an effective way of giving the answer. Anyways, you'll have to think of some example to support the strength. So why not give it from Daniel's situation only? So as I told you, let's look at the model answer. First, just name it, participant variables are controlled. Next, in Daniel's situation, it helps us to see whether differences are due to the IV or not, due to music only or because of something else. Actually, we always write in the tone of if the differences are because of the IV or some other participant variable. Now, just look at the situation once again. They've not given us what is the dependent variable. That's why I've not been able to give an example of a participant variable. Supposing they would have told us, he's seeing the effect of loud and quiet music on attention. Then I could say that participants' natural level of attentiveness or natural ability to focus will be controlled and therefore we will know how much loud and quiet music affect attention. But here they haven't given what is the dependent variable. That's why I've not been able to include it in the answer. So I've just kept it simple without giving any example of participant variables. I've just explained that we'll come to know whether the IV is responsible for any changes or not. So this is how we can answer Daniel's question. Let's come to the 6 marker question. Describe the techniques, paper and pencil questionnaire and online questionnaire using any examples. This is a very typical 6 marker. They take any 2 concepts and they give it for 6 marks. So each concept becomes worth 3 marks. So for 3 marks, 3 points. Now these are concepts again. So first point can be definition. Like you can define what is a paper and pencil questionnaire. Second can be an example. Any general example or from a course study. Sometimes they want from course studies only, then they say using course study examples. Here they've said any example. So literally you can give any. You can give from a course study also. And then any elaboration. Elaboration can be any other feature of that concept, like of paper and pencil questionnaire, or even any strength or weakness counts as a feature only. So strength, weakness or any feature. Just repeat the same thing for the second concept, online questionnaire. So for each concept, definition, example, feature, strength or weakness. 3 points, 3 marks for each. Let's look at the model answer. So for definition, paper and pencil questionnaires are done on physical sheets of paper, often handed out in person. As you know, generally they are given personally and the participant has to fill it right there. So something to that effect you have to explain. For example, a researcher might give school students a printed survey about exam stress. So this is a very general example. The teacher wants to measure, sorry, the researcher wants to measure exam stress. So then and there, in the school only, they are telling the students to answer in paper and pencil. If you want to take an example from a course study, in Holzel et al., participants had to complete FFMQ questionnaire when they used to come for the MRI scanning. So that was paper and pencil. There they used to answer it in person only. So you can give that example. As simple as in Holzel et al. Study, 5 facets of mindfulness questionnaire was answered to measure effectiveness of mindfulness in paper and pencil. Now to give one more feature, this is a kind of strength only, or you can just think of it as a feature. One more elaboration of paper and pencil questionnaire. They can be answered anonymously, means without giving the name, but participants may feel less free to give honest answers if someone collects them face to face. I am going to give the similar example in online questionnaire also, like a sort of comparison, though not compulsory, but that's why I have given it here. Then this will help me to compare. It's just one way of giving. As such, it's not an evaluation or analysis questionnaire, but I felt that this is a important feature of paper and pencil online questionnaires, so I've included. So this is one thing, when people have to answer face to face, they become hesitant to give honest answers because someone is there, the researcher is there, even if he's not interacting directly, but his presence can discourage them from being very honest, just makes them conscious. That is what I'm bringing about here. Alternatively, you can also give things like, it's very helpful for, say, elderly people who don't know how to use computers to answer paper pencil questionnaires. So any such strength or weakness you can give. Same thing we have repeated for online questionnaire. Let's see. Online questionnaires are completed digitally. That's the definition. And through Google Forms or SurveyMonkey, like just to explain what is digitally. Alternatively, you could just say something like completed on the computer or using the internet, something like that. As an example, again a general example, study on social media use could be done by emailing a link to teenagers. So the example says that if we want to know how much teenagers are using social media, we can just give them a link to like a Google form or SurveyMonkey using email. Alternatively, if you want to give an example from a course study, you can give for this one from Perry et al. In that, the interpersonal reactivity index, which was used to measure empathy, that was answered online by participants. Now, to give a further elaboration of this, similar to the one for paper pencil, it will encourage more honest answers because the researcher isn't present when people are answering. But people can ignore the link or they might not complete the survey. Whereas in paper pencil, people do answer because the researcher is present. Here, because the researcher is not present, they might have a casual attitude and they might just procrastinate and ultimately forget to answer, something like that. Alternatively, you could give some other strength or weakness also, such as it requires access to the internet or it requires equipment like computers to answer, so it can be difficult for researchers to put in practice. Let's look at the next question. Again, there's a situation here. Mohsin is investigating whether color affects supermarket shoppers' food choices. He's comparing healthy and unhealthy snacks that are displayed in blue or green packaging. He spends 2 weeks conducting a field experiment. Okay, as you're reading, keep noting the main features. So some IV, some DV, some things we can keep seeing here. Research method. In week 1, he displays the following combinations: healthy snacks in blue packets, unhealthy snacks in blue packets. In week 2, he displays the following combination: healthy snacks in green packets, unhealthy snacks in green packets. Mohsin counts the number of each packet sold. So then they've given operationalization of the DV also. Now, it was very obviously an experiment. They specified also it's field experiment. So typical questions that we could expect are given. First, identify 2 IVs in Mohsin's study. It's like 1 mark for each IV because they've asked for 2. So you simply need to name that identify command term, which is there. It is like naming. You don't need to explain. In the sense, you just say this is the IV and this is the IV. You don't need to explain why this particular IV is used or how it was operationalized, what combination was presented, nothing. Because it's just 1 mark each. How do you identify an IV in a given situation? You ask what is the researcher manipulating or changing to see its effect on some other variable. In this situation, what has Mohsin manipulated or changed? One thing is the type of snack he's given, right? Healthy or unhealthy snack. The second is the color that he has kept of the package of the snack, blue or green. So you can just put it simply like this. Again, it's not even compulsory to write the levels. So if you just want to say type of snack and color of packaging, you'll get marks for that also. But generally, we do present the IB with the level. So very briefly, you can put it this way. It's your choice. Let's look at the next question. State two other combinations that Mohsin should display in the additional weeks. And then they have given like a stem and we just have to complete. Like they've said in 1 week, he should present this and in the other week, he should present this. When there are two IVs, multiple combinations are possible. Like we have seen in the Perry et al. Study, empathy was one IV, oxytocin was the other. So then different permutations are there. So what we have to do is simply look at which permutations Mohsin has used and then just present the ones which he hasn't for the alternatives. So we saw first, he presented healthy and unhealthy snacks in blue packets. And so what we can say is in the first week, he can present healthy snacks in blue packets and unhealthy snacks in green packets. So that will be a combination that is different from the one he's already presented. In this way, he will be covering all sorts of combinations. That is what is important. In the other week, we saw he presented healthy snacks in green packets and unhealthy snacks in green packets. So then we can say he can give healthy snacks in green packets and unhealthy snacks in blue packets. Meaning that originally when he's done the study, he has kept one variable constant, the color, but he's changed the type of snacks. When he does the study again, then he should just vary both of them. He should not hold either of them constant. Let's look at the next question. As we would expect, we have to give reasoning. Explain why the two combinations you stated would be useful. Okay, he should use or he should exhaust all possible combinations, but why? That is the question. Whenever a why type of question comes, very similar to when they ask you for a strength or weakness, first just name the reason, like you name a strength or weakness. Second, just link it to the situation and explain. What do you mean by this? Like obviously, this is being done as a sort of control. Why we are exhausting all possible combinations? Because we want to make sure that it is the combination itself that is impacting whether people choose to buy or not. Buying is the dependent variable and it should not be anything else. It should not be that only because of the color they are buying or only because of the type of snack they are buying. Both should be impactful. So that is a control. So first we just name and say this is being done as a control, and then the explanation I've given just now, that we given the second point to support this. Let's see in the model answer how to put this down. These combinations help control for color being linked to snack type. So I've named it. Next, by rotating the colors across snack types, Mohsin can make sure differences in sales is because of IVs, not just because of one factor, not just because of the color or the snack. In the original, he was keeping the color constant and he was changing the type of snack. So in that case, it would be because of color. So why he should exhaust the other combinations is so that it's not just because of the color. Let's look at the next question. Next question again, first in general, they have asked what is a population. This time it's just for 1 mark. So when a concept is for 1 mark, just give the definition that you have learned in the textbook. No need for any elaboration or any example. What is population? There are many ways of defining. Either you can say the target, people, objects, etc. of the researcher's interest, or you can say it's the larger group of people, objects, etc. from which a sample is drawn, like I have given here. Or you could even say it is all the people that a researcher is interested in studying. So any definition which indicates a large group or all people will count as correct. Next, we have to link. So outline the population being studied by Mohsin. Most common mistake here is to give the sample instead of the population. So if we look at the situation again, he is looking at supermarket shoppers' food choices. So some people would say the supermarket shoppers who are present when Mohsin is doing the study is the population. That is the sample. That is not the target or that's not the larger group. Those are those people who are immediately available. So instead of that, for the population, we have to identify if today he's looking at those shoppers who are present right now. Who are these shoppers representing? Which is the larger group that they are representing? That will be the population. This is for 2 marks. So 2 points we can give is 1. Name the population which he's targeting. And outline just means give any further elaboration, example or something. So we can just give some feature of the population for elaboration. So first we just say this is the population, and next this is the feature which is why he's targeting this population. So let's look at the model answer. Supermarket shoppers who choose snacks. Again, one more mistake here would be just to say supermarket shoppers, because at the time he goes there are shoppers, that's a sample, so larger group must be all supermarket shoppers. That is there, but not all supermarket shoppers. After all, everyone who comes to the supermarket does not buy snacks, and he's targeting snacks as we have seen. So supermarket shoppers who buy snacks, you must have learned in research methods the population has some common characteristic that the researcher wants to study. So everybody literally on earth does not become the population. Those who have the characteristic of interest become the population. So in this case, you can say those who choose snacks, those supermarkets are the supermarket shoppers are the population. And then to give the feature, to explain it, people who shop for food and see how different snacks are packaged. As we saw, firstly they have to be shopping for snacks, and of course they're interested in the color and the type of snack, because that is what he's manipulating. So that is the feature he's interested in, that we give as the second point. Let's come to the next question, a different situation. Jenny has noticed that some of her school friends doodle and some do not doodle. This may be because some of her friends are more creative than others. She plans to explore this difference using a questionnaire. Write one closed question that Jenny could use to investigate the creativity of her friends. It's a very simple question indeed, but the most common mistake is not to give the response choices. Means just giving this part and not giving the part below. Whenever you give a closed question, you can get full marks, even if it is 1 mark, only if you give what are the alternatives. Because a closed question is not a closed question unless the responses are fixed. Second thing is always give a direct question. Some students give indirectly. She could ask them about their creativity. She could ask them about the frequency with which they come up with creative ideas. Think of it as Jenny is asking the question in front of you to the participants. What is she saying? That what she's saying, put it down in direct quotes. So give the question directly. Don't put it indirectly. So one example, as you can see here, is how often do you come up with new ideas? The response choices being never, sometimes, often, very often. Let's look at the next. Write one open question that Jenny could use to investigate the creativity of her friends. Open question, you don't have to give response choices. In fact, if you give, it will become wrong, because then it becomes a closed question. So just give the question, again give it in direct speech, that applies here also. Do not begin the question with how many, how much. It sounds like an open question, but you restrict the person to giving numbers. That's a common mistake. So make sure it's indeed an open question. Ask the question to yourself in your mind after writing and think, would I be able to talk freely on this, or would I be restricted? If you would be able to talk freely, then it is an open question. Let's see one example. Can you describe a time when you solved a problem in a creative way? If someone asks you this, would you be able to elaborate? Yes, because you're being asked to describe something, give something at length. So this counts. Let's look at the next one. Jenny's friends study different subjects at school. Suggest why differences between the subjects they study could also explain the differences in doodling. This is like asking about an extraneous variable, an uncontrolled variable. No doubt creativity can impact doodling, but then there are differences in subjects also. So they're asking you how those differences besides creativity could influence the doodling. So that we have to explain. It's given for 3 marks. So you can think of it as standard pattern. First name it. Name it means just identify the idea that you're going to give on what relation must be there between subjects and doodling. Is it something to do with subjects being boring? Is it to do with subjects encouraging creativity? So first just identify that. I'll show you in the model answer. Then give an example. For example, if this subject is like this, then this can happen. That will give you a second mark. And then just explain it further. Just elaborate on it further. So 3 points, 3 marks. As far as naming is concerned, we can put it like this. Some school subjects encourage creativity more than others. Alternatively, you would say some subjects are more boring than others. Just for saying that it's a relevant point, you get 1 mark. Now to explain it further, what do I mean by some subjects encourage creativity? I can give the example. Those who study art or literature, they might doodle more because as we know, these subjects encourage creativity. You could also give another example simultaneously. Those who study science or maths, they might not doodle much. Why? Because they don't encourage creativity. They are more like deductive type. They are based on logic. Now to elaborate further, so this is how subject choice could affect how often they doodle. Because some subjects are encouraging creativity, others are not. So the ones which are encouraging creativity will result in doodling. Like I've mentioned, they express their ideas visually. Those which are based on logic, they do not encourage doodling. So then those participants will not doodle. So then I have summed it up in the last line. Let's look at the next one. Jenny wants to conduct an overt observation of her friends doodling. She wants to do this the day after they complete the questionnaire. Suggest why this may not produce valid results. Again, read carefully why it may not produce valid results. The key thing is they've mentioned a technique suddenly overt observation, so definitely has something to do with that. Overt observation just means being known to participants. The participants know that there's a researcher who's seeing and recording them. Also, she's doing it a day after. If you feel something is related to that, you can mention. But mostly it is to do with overt observation. You have to answer in the same way. It's a why question again. Name the point or identify why this will be a problem first and then elaborate. Then explain further exactly how it's becoming a problem by linking to Jenny. So here what we can say is, of course, if it is overt observation, people come to know they're being observed. What is the problem? They tend to change their behavior accordingly. That's why we always do not prefer overt observation. So first just state that. If Jenny observes them when after they've answered the question, they might change their behavior because they know that they are being watched. Then explain this further. So why is this a problem exactly? What will happen in this study because of this? It will lead to demand characteristics. So they will end up doodling more or less than usual because they are knowing that Jenny is observing them. Either they become conscious, they feel it's not good to doodle, they stop doodling. So they doodle less. Alternatively, they feel that is what she wants to see, that they're doodling. That's why she's asking questions about that. So they doodle more to please her. So either the please you or the screw you effect, or you can mention both, like I've mentioned. So it can go either way. Either they doodle more or less than usual. I know it's repetitive, but just to reinforce it to you, make sure you keep on using wording from the situation whenever you answer scenario questions. The word doodling must definitely come. Don't keep on just saying behavior, change their actions. Specify doodling. Show that you're linking it with the situation. Use the name of Jenny. Talk about Jenny when you're writing. There's a last question of this type. Let's read it first. Parul has conducted a study about happiness. She has counted the number of her colleagues who are smiling when they arrive at work on Monday and on Friday. And they've given a graph 8.1, which is a figure of her results. We just have to give the axis headings. Because I was typing out this thing, I have given it below, but when you are writing in the paper, you have to, your handwriting, so you just put it where the slot is given. For x and y axis, you write it over there only. So here you put for x and here you put for y. Okay, let's see the situation again. Number of colleagues who are smiling. See what goes on the y-axis always, what is being measured. So what is she measuring or counting? Number of colleagues smiling. So that will go on the y-axis. So you literally just have to write it here. I'm not able to write very well, but I'm sure you're getting my intent. Right? Number of colleagues who are smiling. You can write it like that. And Monday and Friday is there on the x-axis, always the IV or what is being changed or the change which is being measured, that goes on the x-axis. So Monday, Friday, what is that? It's day of the week. Okay, so you have to put it like this in the paper. So just as a rule, remember in the bar graph, always the independent variable goes on the x-axis and the dependent variable goes on the y-axis. This is a 2 marks question. You just have to give very straightforward wording from the situation only. You're just identifying this, what is already written, like number of colleagues smiling. This goes on y, and days of the week goes on x. Like they've given Monday and Friday, but days of the week you put it as, that goes on x. So 1 mark for each. No further elaboration, nothing is required to score for this. Let's look at the next question. Parul's friend says that she should have conducted the study for more than 1 week. Explain one reason it would have been better to have conducted the study for more than 1 week. So the friend is suggesting something. Again, a why type of question, we have to give the reason. So just name the reason and then explain it. Whenever we do something longitudinally, more than 1 week means what? It should be long term. So what's a trend that we have learned of longitudinal studies? If anything unusual happens, we are able to detect that. Right? In the sense, if I do just for 1 week, I do cross sectional, then only in that week something peculiar might be happening, and I feel because of this is what happens every time, like I overgeneralize it. But if I do it week after week, I come to realize that, oh, this was particular to this week. It's not a trend over time. It's not always happening. So longitudinal studies, as we learn in the strength, they help us to see long-term aggregates and to reject any peculiar time-bound type of events which are occurring. So that's strength only we are giving here. Again, to link it to Parul's situation, like to elaborate. So she'll be sure that the pattern is reliable. If she finds that, say, they are smiling on Monday or Wednesday only, or if they're smiling on both days of the week, she will know it's always happening week after week. So she can be confident that that is the usual trend. Let's look at the next question. Parul counted the number of colleagues smiling, but now thinks this may not have been the best way to measure happiness. So suggest one other way Parul could have measured happiness. This is also operationalization of DV type of question, which we had seen in the previous part also. There they told us to identify the operationalization. Sometimes they tell us to suggest. So as practice, what you can do is, after doing this one, just take any question from any past paper, even if they haven't asked for operationalization, but they've named a DV in that question. Just think of other ways that it could be measured or operationalized. That way you get practice. You can do it for your core studies also, like in Holzel et al. To assess mindfulness, they made people answer FFMQ. What would have been another way to assess benefits of mindfulness? So think in different ways. That gives you a hang of how to operationalize variables. There are many options. She could have done brain scanning. She could have seen how much dopamine is being released in the brain. She could have asked in the interview format. She could have asked someone else on an interview. She could have observed them. But I've given a very simple one. She could have used a rating scale. So she could have given a short questionnaire asking them to rate their happiness on a scale from 1 to 10. This is one sentence, but you can break it down to 2 sentences. It's the same pattern, which I always follow. 2 marks, 2 points. Even though it's one sentence, there are 2 points. Naming. So I've named first that a questionnaire can be used, and then elaborating. How the questionnaire would be used, there would be some questions about happiness, and they have to answer from 1 to 10. You can give a sample question if you want, but not compulsory, because here the main focus is not the questionnaire or the question being asked. Here the main focus is just to give an alternative. Next is for the measure of happiness you have suggested, meaning the questionnaire. Explain one advantage of this measure of happiness compared with counting the number of colleagues smiling. 2 things here. Once, follow the same format, name it and elaborate on it, link it. Second thing is, keep in mind, don't you to compare with number of colleagues smiling. As such, there can be hundreds strengths of asking people to rate something on a questionnaire. But you have to give that particular strength which makes it better than counting the number of colleagues smiling. You cannot give something which is, in the case of number of colleagues smiling also it would have been a strength, you cannot give that. So that is where you can lose marks. Supposing I say it's objective because this is numerical. But then counting the number of smiles is also numerical. It is also objective. Doesn't answer the question. How is this better than counting the number of smiles? So if you think about, when it comes to observation, counting is observation. What is always the problem? It's indirect. We are looking at behavior. From that, we are inferring what is going on in someone's mind. As compared to that, why questionnaire is always better? Self-report, direct. They tell us on their own what they think about. That advantage we are getting, which we do not get in observation. Now that, what we have learned, observation versus questionnaire, just have to link it, use wording from the scenario and give how it is being seen in this case. So questionnaire gives a direct measure of how happy someone feels. This is first, just identifying the strength it has over counting. Then the example, smiling can be fake or polite. So as an observer, if I'm looking at someone smiling, I'm thinking they're happy, so they're doing it, but actually they're just being polite. They're not feeling happy. That misconception or that bias will not come if I ask them to tell me directly whether they are feeling happy or not, which can come if I wrongly infer that they are smiling because they are happy. So that's it for this part of the video. In the next part, I will cover the designer study question, including the 2 short questions that come along with that. If this lesson has been helpful to you, you can move over to the next part in which we cover designer study. Thank you for watching.